The Big Short is a 2015 American biographical comedy drama film directed by Adam McKay. Written by McKay and Charles Randolph, it is based on the 2010 book The Big Short, Inside the Doomsday Machine by Michael Lewis, showing how the financial crisis of 2007-2008 was triggered by the United States housing bubble. The film stars Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt, with Melissa Leo, Hamish Linklater, John Magaro, Rafe Spall, Jeremy Strong, Finn Wittrock, and Marissa Tomei in supporting roles. The film is noted for the unconventional techniques it employs to explain financial instruments. Among others, it features cameo appearances by actress Margot Robbie, chef Anthony Bourdain, singer-songwriter Selena Gomez, and economist Richard Thaler, who break the fourth wall to explain concepts such as subprime mortgages and synthetic collateralized debt obligations. Several of the film's characters directly address the audience, most frequently Gosling's, who serves as the narrator. The Big Short began a limited release in the United States on December 11, 2015, followed by a wide release on December 23 by Paramount Pictures. A critical and commercial success, the film grossed $133 million on a $50 million budget and received acclaim for the performances of the cast, particularly that of Bale, McKay's direction, editing, and the screenplay. The film won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, in addition to nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Bale, and Best Film Editing. Storyline. The film consists of three separate but concurrent stories, loosely connected by their actions in the years leading up to the 2007 housing market crash. Cyan Capital. In 2005, eccentric hedge fund manager Michael Burry discovers that the United States housing market, based on high-risk subprime loans, is extremely unstable. Anticipating the market's collapse in the second quarter of 2007, as interest rates would rise from adjustable-rate mortgages, he proposes to create a credit default swap market, allowing him to bet against, or short, market-based mortgage-backed securities for profit. His long-term bet, exceeding $1 billion, is accepted by major investment and commercial banks, but requires paying substantial monthly premiums. This sparks his main client, Lawrence Fields, to accuse him of wasting capital, while many clients demand that he reverse and sell, but Burry refuses. Under pressure, he eventually restricts withdrawals, angering investors, and Fields sues Burry. Eventually, the market collapses and his fund's value increases by 489% with an overall profit, even allowing for the massive premiums of over $2.69 billion, with Fields receiving $489 million alone. Front Point Partners. Jared Venet, based on Greg Lippmann, the executive in charge of global asset-backed securities trading at Deutsche Bank, is one of the first to understand Burry's analysis, learning from one of the bankers who sold Burry an early credit default swap. Using his quant to verify that Burry is most likely correct, he decides to enter the market, earning a fee from selling the swaps to firms who will profit when the underlying bonds fail. A misplaced phone call alerts Front Point Partners hedge fund manager Mark Baum, based on Steve Eisman, who is motivated to buy swaps from Venet due to his low regard for banks' ethics and business models. Venet explains that the packaging of subprime loans into collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, rated at AAA ratings will guarantee their eventual collapse. Conducting a field investigation in South Florida, the Front Point team discovers that mortgage brokers are profiting by selling their mortgage deals to Wall Street banks, who pay higher margins for the riskier mortgages, creating the bubble. This knowledge prompts the Front Point team to buy swaps from Venet. In early 2007, as these loans begin to default, CDO prices somehow rise, and ratings agencies refuse to downgrade the bond ratings. Baum discovers conflicts of interest and dishonesty amongst the credit rating agencies from an acquaintance at Standard & Poor's. Vennett invites the team to the American Securitization Forum in Las Vegas, where Baum learns from a CDO manager that the market for insuring mortgage bonds, including synthetic CDOs which are bets in favor of the faulty mortgage bonds, is significantly larger than the market for the mortgage loans themselves, leading a horrified Baum to realize the entire world economy is set to collapse. As the subprime bonds continue to fall, Baum learns that Morgan Stanley, whose umbrella FrontPoint operates under, had also taken short positions against mortgage derivatives. However, in order to offset the risk and the monthly premiums, it had bought higher-rated mortgage derivatives. Now that these are also collapsing in value, Morgan Stanley is facing severe liquidity problems. Despite pressure from his staff to sell their position before Morgan Stanley collapses, Baum refuses to sell until the economy is on the verge of collapsing, making over $1 billion in their swaps. Even so, Baum laments that the banks, as well as the government, will not admit what caused the economy to collapse, but will instead blame immigrants and poor people. Brownfield Capital. Young investors Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley accidentally discover a marketing presentation by Vennett on a coffee table in the lobby of a large investment bank. The characters address the audience stating that in reality they had heard about Vennett's plan through word of mouth from friends and family, convincing them to invest in swaps, as it fits their strategy of buying cheap insurance with big potential payouts. Below the capital threshold for an ISDA master agreement required to enter into trades like Burry's and Baum's, they enlist the aid of Ben Rickard, a retired securities trader who was based in Singapore. When the bond values and CDOs rise despite defaults, Geller suspects the banks of committing fraud. The trio also visit the American Securitization Forum, where they learn that the SEC has no regulations to monitor mortgage-backed security activity. They successfully make even more profit than Burry and Baum by shorting the higher-rated AA mortgage securities, as they were considered highly stable and carried a much higher payout ratio. Brownfield Capital is based on the firm Cornwall Capital. Later, as default numbers rise, the value of the CDOs and mortgage bonds does not change, and they realize the banks and the ratings agencies are maintaining the value of their CDOs in order to sell and short them before the inevitable crash. Horrified, they try to tip off the press about the upcoming disaster and the rampant fraud, but a writer from the Wall Street Journal exposes his own personal conflict of interest and will not listen in order to not endanger his relationships at the Wall Street investment banks. As the market starts collapsing, Ben, on vacation in England, sells their swaps. Ultimately, they turn their $30 million investment into $80 million, but their faith in the system is broken when Ben tells them of the severe consequences for the general public. Epilogue. Jared Vennett receives a bonus of $47 million for all of his swap sales. Mark Baum becomes more gracious from the financial fallout, and his staff continue to operate their fund. Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley go their separate ways after unsuccessfully trying to sue the ratings agencies, with Charlie moving to Charlotte to start a family and Jamie still running the fund. Ben Rickard returns to his peaceful retirement. Michael Burry closes his fund after public backlash and multiple IRS audits, now only investing in water securities. The personnel of the banks responsible for the crisis escape any consequences for their actions, with the single exception of one trader. It is noted that, as of 2015, banks are selling CDOs again under a new label, Bespoke Tranche Opportunity. Did you know? The quotation that appears on screen, "Truth is like poetry. And most people fucking hate poetry," overheard at a Washington, D.C. bar, was written by director and co-writer Adam McKay after unsuccessfully searching for the perfect quotation to use for that segment. The real Michael Burry made a cameo in the film as a Cyan employee. At the beginning of the scene in which the fictional Burry's investors confront him at his office, he is briefly shown standing near the front door, talking on the phone. The character Mark Baum was based on real-life money manager Steve Eisman. Jared Venett was based on real-life trader Greg Lippmann. Ben Rickert was based on Ben Hockett. Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley were based on Charlie Ledley and Jamie Mai. See you later. Thanks for the subscription.